My phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. Once, twice, then a sharp sound I didn't recognize at first. Bank alert. I wiped my hands on my depata and picked it up, smiling without thinking. My husband always said alerts meant nothing important. He hated when I checked. The message was short. Access removed. Contact primary account holder. I stared at it. Read it again. Then again. Removed. I felt that strange hollow feeling right under my ribs. The one you get when something breaks quietly, before you even know what it is. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. A system error. A wrong tap. Anything except the truth that was beginning to form. Because my husband had been dead for 3 weeks. And suddenly, I wasn't allowed into places I had lived my whole life. The kettle screamed behind me. I turned it off with shaking hands. Calm down, I whispered to myself. It's just a bank. But deep down I knew. This wasn't about money. It was about permission. The house felt too quiet without him. Even after 42 years of marriage, I still listened for his cough in the mornings, his slippers dragging across the floor, his voice asking if the tea was ready. Instead, there was only silence. And that message. I sat at the table and opened the family WhatsApp group. Family Red Heart. That was what my son had named it years ago. I scrolled. Photos I hadn't seen before. A smiling woman holding documents. A cake shaped like a house. Captions filled the screen. Finally done. So relieved. He planned everything perfectly. My heart began to pound. Plan what? My fingers hovered, then typed. Me, what is this about? The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. Minutes passed. No reply. That's when the voice note arrived. From my daughter-in-law. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Mama, maybe we should talk later. You've been through a lot. Later. That word. It always meant never. I stood up, so suddenly my chair fell backward. Talk about what? I said out loud, though no one was there. I walked to the hallway and looked at the framed photos. Our wedding. Our first house. Our son's graduation. And then, the one photo I always avoided. A narrow white building. 2 floors. A black iron gate. The house. The one my husband never let me enter. He bought it 12 years ago. I remember the day clearly. He came home unusually cheerful. Humming. Carrying sweets. What's the occasion? I asked. Just a good day, he replied. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I asked again. He sighed. I bought a small property, he said casually. Investment. Where? I asked. He turned to face the wall. You don't need to know. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. But he didn't laugh back. From that day on, the rules were clear. I was never allowed to go there. Never allowed to ask questions. Never allowed to mention it in front of our son. Whenever I tried, his tone changed. Sharp. Final. That house is not for you, he said once. Don't make it an issue. I didn't. I stayed quiet. After everything I sacrificed, I stayed quiet. Now, standing in the hallway alone, that silence came back to punish me. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my son. Amy, he said, his voice rushed. Why are you checking the bank? My mouth went dry. Because my access is gone, I said. Why? He hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Abu made arrangements, he said carefully. It's complicated. What arrangements? I asked. Another pause. Mama, the house. The word landed like a slap. What about the house? I whispered. You were never supposed to go there, he said quickly. You know that. I felt heat rise to my face. I'm his wife, I said. Or was I just temporary? Don't make this emotional, he replied. That sentence. That was the moment something cracked. I ended the call without another word. My hands were trembling now. I opened my messages. A new notification blinked at the top. Smart doorbell app, new activity. My breath caught. I hadn't installed any app. I opened it. There was a short video clip. Someone unlocking the black iron gate. Someone walking inside. Someone who wasn't me. I sank into the chair. My thoughts raced. Who gave them access? Why now? Why am I the last to know? The house. The rules. The bank alert. It was all connected. That evening, my daughter-in-law came over. She didn't hug me. She didn't sit close. She placed her purse carefully on the table, like she was visiting a stranger. You shouldn't stress yourself, she said softly. Doctor said rest. I want answers, I replied. She folded her hands. Abu didn't want you involved, she said gently. He was protecting you. From what? I asked. She looked at the floor. Mama, sometimes love means boundaries. Boundaries. I laughed, a dry sound that surprised even me. So that house, I said slowly. Who has the keys? She hesitated, then said, we do. The humiliation burned. Not loud, not dramatic. Quiet. The kind that stays. I nodded. I see, I said. But I didn't. Not yet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying moments. Every time he shut me down. Every time I stayed silent to keep the peace. Every time I told myself, this is marriage. At 2:14 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A man's voice. Mrs. May, he said. I'm calling regarding your husband's documents. My heart skipped. What documents? I asked. The property file, he replied. The sealed one. My grip tightened. There's something you should know, he continued. Before anyone else tells you. I sat up. Yes. A pause. Then, the house was never empty. I didn't know it yet. But that phone call was the beginning of everything unraveling. And the door I was forbidden to open was hiding much more than walls. The lawyer's words stayed with me long after the call ended. The house was never empty. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the clock tick like it was counting down something I couldn't see. Never empty. That meant someone had been there, living, eating, sleeping, all these years while I was told to stay away. I wanted to wake my son. I wanted to call my sister. I wanted to scream. Instead, I did what I had always done. I stayed quiet. Morning came without permission. I sat at the breakfast table alone, stirring tea I didn't drink. My phone buzzed again. Another bank notification. Scheduled transfer pending approval. Approval? By who? I opened the app. My name was no longer listed as spouse, just secondary user. Restricted. I laughed under my breath. 42 years. And suddenly I needed permission. At 9:07 a.m., the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my son standing there, avoiding my eyes. Mama, he said, we need to talk. I stepped aside. He didn't sit. He stood, hands clasped, like a man delivering bad news to a stranger. You shouldn't go near that house, he said immediately. I looked at him. Not the boy I raised. Not the child whose school lunches I packed. A man rehearsing someone else's instructions. Why? I asked. He exhaled sharply. Because Abu didn't want you there. That's not an answer, I said. He shifted. The documents are clear, he continued. The house isn't legally yours. The word legally landed like a blade. So whose is it? I asked. Silence. I leaned forward. Whose is it? He rubbed his face. It's complicated. That phrase again. I stood up. Complicated is when you forget an anniversary, I said quietly. Not when you erase your wife. His jaw tightened. Mama, please don't create drama. Drama? I nodded. I won't, I said. I'll create truth. He left soon after. Too soon. Before I could ask the question burning in my chest. Who lives there? I didn't wait for permission. At 11:42 a.m., I took my handbag and left the house. The address was etched into my memory. I had heard it enough times, whispered on phone calls, spoken sharply when he thought I was asleep. The taxi slowed as we approached. My heart began to race. The black iron gate stood exactly as I remembered. Tall, unwelcoming, but now open. I stepped out slowly. The air smelled different here. Newer, colder. I walked toward the entrance, my feet heavy. The door was unlocked. That alone told me everything. I pushed it open. The house was not empty. It was lived in. Tastefully. Expensively. Shoes neatly lined by the door. A woman's shawl draped over the couch. Fresh flowers on the table. I stood frozen. My hands trembled. This wasn't an investment. This was a life. I knew you'd come. The voice came from behind me. I turned slowly. She was younger than me. Mid-30s, maybe. Well-dressed. Confident. not surprised. Who are you? I asked. She smiled politely. You can call me Isla, she said. I've been expecting this conversation. My throat closed. How long? I whispered. She tilted her head. Does it matter? She replied gently. Yes, I said. It matters. She sighed. 10 years. The room spun. 10 years. I sat down without realizing it. 10 years of birthdays. 10 years of excuses. 10 years of rules. You were married? I asked. She shook her head. No. The pause stretched. Not legally. My chest burned. So what were you? I asked. She met my eyes. Loved. I wanted to slap her. I didn't. I wanted to cry. I didn't. Instead, I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest for a decade. Why was I kept out? She hesitated, then walked to a cabinet. She opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, property documents, hospital forms, and one envelope, sealed. He said you wouldn't understand, she said quietly. That you'd interfere. Interfere. With what? She placed the envelope in front of me. My name was written on it, in my husband's handwriting. Before I could open it, my phone rang. My daughter-in-law. I answered. Where are you? She demanded. At the house, I said calmly. A sharp intake of breath. You had no right. I looked at Isla, then at the documents. I had every right, I replied. Her voice dropped. Mama, if you open that letter, things will change. I closed my eyes. Things already have, I said. I hung up. My hand shook as I picked up the envelope. Isla watched silently. I broke the seal. Inside was a single page, and one sentence circled in red ink. She must never know about the child. My heart stopped. Child? I looked up slowly. Isla's face had gone pale. What child? I asked. She swallowed. You weren't supposed to see that yet. Yet. I stood. The room felt smaller. Is there a child? I asked again. She nodded. A girl, she whispered. She's 9. 9? My knees nearly gave out. 9 years old. Born while I was cooking his meals, praying for his health, defending his honor. The doorbell rang sharply. Isla flinched. I didn't. I knew who it was. Footsteps. Voices. My son. My daughter-in-law. Angry. Panicked. Mama, my son called. Open the door. I looked at Isla, then at the documents, then at the letter in my hand. I wish I could say this was the worst moment, I said softly. But it wasn't, because just then, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From the lawyer. Mrs. May, the DNA results are back. Please call me immediately. The knocking on the door wasn't polite anymore. It was sharp, urgent, panicked. Mama, open the door, my son shouted. I stood in the living room of the secret house, the letter still trembling in my hand. She must never know about the child. Those words burned into my eyes. I looked at Isla. Her confident posture from earlier had collapsed. She stood stiff, hands clenched, eyes darting toward the door like a trapped animal. They shouldn't be here, she whispered. I let out a quiet laugh. They've been here all along, I said. Just not with me. The knocking turned into pounding. My daughter-in-law's voice cut through next. Mama, don't do this. Think about your health. Health. That word they used whenever they wanted silence. I walked to the door and opened it. My son froze when he saw me standing there, not confused, not crying, not begging. Just standing. Behind him stood my daughter-in-law, her lips pressed tight, eyes scanning the room like she was already calculating damage. Mama, my son began. I stepped aside. Come in, I said, since everyone else has. They entered slowly. Their eyes moved over the furniture, the decor, the photos on the wall. Photos I hadn't seen before. My husband, smiling, relaxed. A version of him I hadn't known in years. My daughter-in-law noticed them too. Her face didn't change. That's when I knew. She had seen them before. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. I turned to her. And yet, I replied, everyone else was welcome. She swallowed. This isn't what you think. I walked to the coffee table and placed the letter down between us, then explained this. My son's eyes dropped to the paper. His shoulders sagged. That reaction, that single second, it told me everything. You knew, I said. He didn't answer. You knew, I repeated louder. Mama. How long? I demanded. Silence. My daughter-in-law spoke instead. Since before we were married. The room went still. Before. I felt something leave my body then. Not anger. Not sadness. Trust. So at my son's wedding, I said slowly, when you touched my feet and asked for blessings. She looked away. You already knew your father had another family, I finished. She didn't deny it. My son finally spoke. He said it wasn't a family, he said quickly. He said it was complicated. Complicated. Always complicated. I turned to Isla. And you? I asked. Did you know I existed? She nodded. He talked about you all the time, she said softly. He said you were strong, traditional, that you preferred distance. I laughed. Distance. As if silence had been my choice. I walked toward the wall where the photos hung. A child's drawing was framed among them. Crayons. Stick figures. A man holding a little girl's hand. My heart clenched. That's her, I whispered. Isla nodded. She calls him Baba. Baba. The word echoed in my ears. My son shifted uncomfortably. She's just a child, he said. This isn't her fault. I turned sharply. Don't teach me mercy, I said. I raised you with it. My phone buzzed. Again. The lawyer. I answered without looking away from my son. Yes, I said. Mrs. May, the lawyer began carefully. The DNA test confirms a biological relationship. My chest tightened. Between whom? I asked. There was a pause. Between you and the child. The room blurred. What? I whispered. You share mitochondrial markers, he continued. The child is related to you through your husband's maternal line. I gripped the table. So she is your granddaughter, he finished. The word fell heavy. Granddaughter. A child I had never held. Never known. Never been allowed to love. Isla covered her mouth. My daughter-in-law took a step back. My son's face drained of color. That's not possible, he said. It is, the lawyer replied calmly, which raises further legal implications. I ended the call. My hand shook violently now. She's mine. I whispered. Isla nodded through tears. He said it was safer this way, she said. That if you knew, you'd fight. Fight. I straightened. They were right, I said. I walked toward my son. He looked smaller now. You stood in my kitchen, I said quietly. You ate my food. You watched me pray for your father. He couldn't meet my eyes. You watched me worry about him coming home late, I continued. And you let me believe I was paranoid. He whispered, I didn't want to hurt you. I smiled sadly. You didn't want to disturb your comfort, I corrected. My daughter-in-law finally spoke again. Mama, think about society, she said. Think about reputation. Reputation. That word again. Whose? I asked. She hesitated. Everyone's. I nodded. Then why was I the only one sacrificed? The doorbell rang again. This time I knew. The sound was official. Measured. 2 short rings. Isla stiffened. I didn't call anyone, she said. I walked to the door and opened it. 2 men stood there. One in a suit. One holding a file. Mrs. May, the man in the suit asked. Yes. I'm from the family court, he said. There's been a petition filed regarding property guardianship. I turned slowly. To my son. To my daughter-in-law. To Isla. By whom? I asked. He checked the file. By you. The room exploded into voices. What? How? This is impossible. I raised my hand. Quiet, I said. Everyone stopped. I haven't filed anything, I said calmly. The man nodded. We suspected that, he said. The signature doesn't match. I inhaled sharply. Then whose signature is it? I asked. He looked at the page. It appears to be your husband's, he said. Digitally replicated. Forged. After death. My daughter-in-law's phone slipped from her hand. My son backed away. Isla whispered. He said everything was handled. Handled? By who? For the record, the court officer continued. The petition requests transfer of the property and guardianship of the minor away from all current residents. I felt the room tilt. Away. I repeated. To the legal grandmother, he finished. You. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Unbelievable. I sat down slowly. Not in victory. In shock. They were trying to move everything without me, I whispered. The court officer nodded. And failed. My son dropped into a chair. This wasn't supposed to happen, he murmured. I looked at him. That's what betrayal always says. As the men left, the house felt different. Smaller. Exposed. Isla stood, trembling. I didn't want this, she said. I just wanted stability. I looked at her. And I just wanted honesty. We stood there, two women bound by the same man's secrets. Outside, I heard a car door slam. My daughter-in-law had left. Without a word. I picked up the letter again. Folded it carefully. This isn't over, I said. My son looked up, eyes wet. What are you going to do? He asked. I paused, then said the truth. I'm going to open every door I was forbidden from. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed one last time. A message. Unknown number. If you pursue guardianship, the past won't stay buried. I stared at the screen and realized the house wasn't the only secret. The message stayed on my screen long after I read it. If you pursue guardianship, the past won't stay buried. I didn't reply. Threats only work when you're afraid of losing something. And by then, I had already lost everything that mattered. I didn't go home that night. I sat in the back seat of a taxi, watching the city lights blur past, my reflection faint in the glass. A woman I barely recognized stared back. Older, quieter, but awake, for the first time in years. The next morning, I went somewhere no one expected. The hospital. Not for grief counseling, not for sympathy, for records. The receptionist smiled politely when I gave my husband's name. I need copies of all consent forms signed in the last 10 years, I said calmly. She hesitated. Are you immediate family? I was his wife for 42 years, I replied. If that's not immediate, then nothing is. She disappeared into the back. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. People passed me, whispering, glancing. Finally, a man in a white coat approached. Mrs. May, he said gently. Some of these files are sensitive. I met his eyes. So was my marriage, I said. And yet, here we are. He handed me a folder. Thick. Heavy. As if it carried weight beyond paper. Some forms were signed digitally, he added. Not all by you. That sentence stayed with me as I sat down in the waiting area. I opened the folder, and my hands began to shake. Consent forms, treatment approvals, emergency contacts. Not once in the last 7 years had my name appeared. Instead, Isla, listed as primary decision maker. My heart pounded. She had no right, I whispered. But the ink didn't care about my feelings. The signatures were clean, official, legal. I flipped further. A page fell out. Highlighted. Yellow marker. Psychiatric evaluation. My name was on it. I frowned. I had never. Then I read the date. 8 years ago. The week after I confronted my husband about his late nights. The week he said, "You worry too much." The report described me as emotionally volatile, overly suspicious, exhibiting paranoid tendencies related to imagined infidelity. Imagined. I felt my throat close. There was a signature at the bottom. A doctor I didn't recognize. And a note in the margin. Husband requests discretion. I stared at the words. This wasn't neglect. This was strategy. I didn't cry. Not then. I closed the folder carefully and stood. The doctor approached again. Mrs. May, he said softly. Do you remember any of this? I shook my head. I remember being told I was tired, I said. That grief was confusing me. He looked uncomfortable. There were recommendations, he admitted. Reduced access. Less stress. Reduced access. To my own life. Outside the hospital, my phone rang. My sister. Nana, she said urgently. What is going on? People are talking. Talking. The story had started moving without me. What are they saying? I asked. That you're unstable, she whispered. That you're trying to take a child that isn't yours. I closed my eyes. They always choose the easiest lie, I said. I went home that afternoon. My house, the one I had lived in for decades, and felt like a guest. The front door camera blinked as I entered. Smart doorbell. New. Installed recently. I paused. Someone was watching. Inside, my daughter-in-law sat on the sofa, phone in hand. She stood when she saw me. Mama, she said. We need to talk. I walked past her, sat down, placed the hospital folder on the table. She followed. You shouldn't be doing this, she said quickly. People are concerned. Concerned about what? I asked. Your behavior, she replied. The court, the house, the child. I opened the folder, slid the psychiatric report toward her. Is this why? I asked. Her face drained of color. You saw that, she whispered. So you knew, I said. She didn't answer. You let them paint me as unstable, I continued, so no one would listen. She sat slowly. He said it was for your own good, she murmured. I laughed. A small, broken sound. Everything bad was always for my own good, I said. The door opened. My son entered. He froze when he saw the folder. What is this? He asked. I didn't answer. He picked up the report. Read. His hands trembled. This isn't true, he said weakly. It didn't have to be, I replied. But you let it become truth. He looked at his wife. You said Mama was fine, he said. She looked away. I said she was emotional. Silence filled the room. Then my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. This time a voice note. I pressed play. A woman's voice. Cold. Measured. Mrs. May, you should stop. Digging will only damage what little dignity you have left. I felt something settle in my chest. Calm. Dead calm. I know that voice, I said. My son looked up. So do I, he whispered. I played it again. The tone. The phrasing. The authority. That's the doctor, my son said slowly. The one who signed this. I nodded. She didn't evaluate me, I said. She labeled me. I stood up. I'm going out, I said. To where? My daughter-in-law asked nervously. To meet the woman they warned me about, I replied. They stared at me. Myself, I finished. That evening, I went to my bedroom, pulled out a box from under the bed. Old letters, diaries, things I was told to forget. I sat on the floor and read. Patterns emerged. Dates matched. Every time I questioned him, something happened. A distraction. A diagnosis. A delay. He hadn't silenced me with force. He had erased me with paperwork. At midnight, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Isla. Alone. I opened the door. She looked exhausted. I didn't know about the reports, she said immediately. I swear. I studied her. For the first time, not as an enemy, but as another controlled woman. They used you too, I said quietly. She nodded. He told me you were cruel, she whispered. That you'd destroy us. I sighed. They told me I was imagining you, I replied. 2 lies. 1 man. She handed me a small envelope. What's this? I asked. Something he made me keep, she said. In case anything happened. I opened it. Inside was a USB drive. And a note. If Nana ever finds this, let her decide. My name. In his handwriting. Again. My hands trembled. What's on it? I asked. Isla shook her head. I was too afraid to check. I nodded. So was I said. But not anymore. I plugged the drive into my laptop. A folder opened. Labeled. Medical/legal/audio. My stomach dropped. Audio. I clicked the first file. My husband's voice filled the room. Calm. Calculated. If she resists, say she's unstable. Doctors listen when husbands speak gently. Isla gasped. I didn't move. Another file. Make sure Nana is not listed on any emergency documents. She complicates things. Another. If the child ever becomes an issue, keep Nana legally confused. I closed the laptop slowly. The room felt too small. Too honest. My phone buzzed. A text. From my son. Mama, did Abu ever take you to therapy? I stared at it. Then replied. No. But he took me out of my own life. I leaned back. Exhausted. But clear. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. Outside, thunder rolled. A storm coming. I whispered to myself. They warned everyone about me. I smiled faintly. They should have listened. The morning sun pierced through the curtains, but I didn't notice it. I sat at the edge of my bed, laptop open, staring at the files my husband had left behind. Audio recordings, legal documents, bank statements, all evidence of the life I had been systematically shut out of. I didn't call anyone. I didn't text. I didn't plan. I just stared. and thought about every time I'd stayed quiet. Every time I swallowed my anger to preserve the peace. Every time I had chosen to explain myself instead of asserting my rights. Enough. Today that would end. By 10 a.m., the lawyer called again. "Mrs. May," he said, "I've reviewed the documents. There's enough to request immediate guardianship and property access." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Do it," I said simply. My son called shortly after. "Mama, wait," he said. "We can figure this out privately." "No," I said, and the word surprised me. Not him. Not even myself. No. I've explained myself for decades. Now I act. The first confrontation came at the family WhatsApp group. Family Red Heart. I typed slowly, deliberately. "I have received documents and recordings. I am taking immediate guardianship of the child and full access to the property. I will speak with no one privately. All discussions are to be handled legally." The typing dots appeared, then disappeared. Then another message. "Son, Mama, please don't do this publicly." I didn't reply. I watched, listened. The silence after my message was louder than any scream. By afternoon, the first emails arrived. From banks, from lawyers, from distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. All the same tone. Cautious, tentative, afraid. They had assumed I would crumble. They had assumed I would plead. They had assumed I would continue explaining myself. They were wrong. I left my house before sunset. Isla insisted on coming with me. "No," I said. "This is my fight. Alone." She nodded. "I understand." We drove to the secret house. The front gate loomed like a sentinel. I didn't hesitate. I unlocked it. Walked inside. Isla followed silently. The house smelled faintly of incense, flowers, and freshly baked bread. The living room was immaculate. Too immaculate. I saw them then. My son and daughter-in-law. Standing in the doorway. Faces pale. "Mom," my son whispered. I ignored him. I ignored her. I sat down in the chair nearest the window, crossed my legs, and waited. "Why are you here?" my daughter-in-law finally asked. I looked at her slowly. "I am here," I said, "because it's my right, and because I am done explaining myself." The words landed hard. Silence. My son fidgeted. "You're being unreasonable," he said. I smiled faintly. "I've been reasonable for 42 years. And see where it got me." I stood, walked toward the cabinet where the child's toys were neatly arranged. I picked up a small doll, held it in my hand. "This child," I said softly, "has had a grandmother who loved her from afar, and a family who made rules without telling her why. That ends today." My son swallowed. "Please," he began. I cut him off. "No. Silence is the weapon now. Not words." My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Text message. "Do not push further. There are consequences you cannot imagine." I set it down without reading again. Isla stepped closer. "They're serious," she whispered. I nodded. And yet, they underestimated me. I spent the next hour going through the audio recordings again. Every threat, every calculated manipulation, every instruction my husband had given to silence me. I realized something crucial. I wasn't powerless. I had just been taught to believe I was. I didn't tell anyone what I planned next. I didn't warn them. I didn't even look at my son and daughter-in-law as I walked out. I just left. The first move was simple. I went to the bank where my husband had revoked my access. The employees looked surprised when I walked in. I handed them the documents. Legal proof, audio evidence, certified copies. Within an hour, my account access was restored. Every restriction lifted. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because I knew the next battle wasn't with banks. It was with people. People who had lied. People who had hidden. People who had taken advantage of my silence. By evening, the messages had started pouring in again. Family group chat. "Mama, please stop. We can negotiate privately. This is tearing everyone apart." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop, clicked on the USB drive my husband had left. The recordings, the documents. I started compiling a folder. Every message, every bank transfer, every court filing. Then, I did something I had never done in my life. I forwarded the folder to my lawyer, with one instruction. Use everything. Legally. Publicly if necessary. The family must know the truth. I pressed send. A heavy silence followed. The first reaction came 15 minutes later. My daughter-in-law's phone buzzed. She stared at it, eyes wide. My son dropped into a chair, covering his face with his hands. Isla whispered, "They don't know what's coming." I looked at her. "No," I said quietly. "They know exactly who I am now." Later that night, I received another text. Unknown number. "You've made a mistake. Stop this before it's too late." I smiled. For the first time in years. "I don't make mistakes anymore," I whispered. By midnight, the WhatsApp group exploded. "Mama, please reconsider. This is too far. We just want peace." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Silence was louder than words. Before I went to sleep, I looked out the window. The city lights flickered below, and I realized the world had underestimated me for 42 years. The family had underestimated me for decades. The system had underestimated me for years. But no more. I was awake. I was informed. I was ready. The morning came heavy, gray clouds pressing against the windows like the eyes of the world. I didn't see them. I only saw my granddaughter. The court called first. The lawyer's voice was calm but firm. "Mrs. May, you need to be in the courtroom at 10 a.m. Documents ready. DNA test results will be submitted as evidence. This is public record." I nodded. Understood. The word felt heavy in my chest. This wasn't just guardianship anymore. This was truth exposure. By 9:30 a.m. I was dressed. Simple sari. No jewelry. Minimal makeup. The kind of elegance that commanded respect without screaming for it. Isla sat beside me in the car, silent. "You're sure about this?" she asked. "I've been silent for 42 years, I said. "Today I speak. Publicly, and without explanation." We arrived at the courthouse. The entrance was crowded. Reporters, neighbors, distant relatives, even a few family friends I hadn't seen in years. I ignored them, focused on the glass doors ahead. Inside, the courtroom was already buzzing. My son and daughter-in-law were there. The moment I walked in, they stiffened. Eyes wide, faces pale. "I'm here," I said softly, "because it's my right. And because silence is over." The judge called the hearing to order. DNA results were presented. The minor child in question is biologically related to Mrs. May. Maternal lineage confirmed. Legal guardianship must consider grandmother's rights. I felt the room tilt. Whispers, murmurs, shocked gasps. My son's jaw dropped. My daughter-in-law's lips pressed tight. The first moment of public humiliation arrived. A family friend, seated in the gallery, whispered loud enough for half the courtroom to hear. "Can you believe she didn't know?" I smiled faintly. They thought they were mocking me. They were only confirming the years of secrets I had endured. Then came the documents. Hospital records, legal filings, audio evidence. The judge listened. The court clerk played the recordings. My husband's voice. Calm, calculated, directing the world to erase me. Label her unstable. Limit her access. Keep Nana away from the child. The murmurs grew louder. Eyes turned to my son. "Did you know?" His face went pale. I stood slowly, walked to the front of the courtroom. Everyone could see me. Not crying, not begging, not explaining, just standing. I held the USB drive in my hand like a scepter. "The person who controlled everything," I said softly, "thought I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't act. That silence would protect them." Silence fell. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. May, continue," he said. I opened my voice now. Not a whisper. Not soft. For decades, I was kept away from my own life. Denied access. Denied truth. Denied my own granddaughter. Murmurs turned into gasps. People shifted uncomfortably. The power was mine now. The next humiliation was private, yet everyone saw it. My son's wife finally spoke. "Mama, please." I cut her off. "Please what? Protect lies? Protect deceit? Protect a man who thought he could erase me." The words echoed. The courtroom fell silent again. The DNA report was displayed on a large screen. 9 years old. 9 years of life hidden. A face I had never seen, and yet biologically mine. The judge looked at me. "Mrs. May," he said slowly, Your rights as a grandmother are now recognized. You may petition for custody consideration. I nodded, not out of gratitude, but recognition. The first wave of power reversal hit my son. He tried to speak. Mom, we can. Silence, I said firmly. His words died mid-sentence. For the first time, he felt the weight of my authority. After the hearing, we walked out. Reporters clustered around. I didn't shy away. Cameras, phones, recordings. I gave one statement. I have been silent too long. Today, I claim my right to my granddaughter and the truth. That is all. No tears, no explanations. The cameras captured every inch, every step, every word. Back at the house, Isla met me at the door. Everyone will know now, she said nervously. They do, I replied calmly. We just started, she whispered. I nodded. Yes, and I intend to finish. That evening, my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Stop now, or the child will be taken from you permanently. I laughed softly. Threats, I whispered, have power only if fear exists. There was no fear left, only clarity. I reviewed the recordings again. Every instance of manipulation, every hidden decision, every file, all lined up neatly. Ready. The public exposure wasn't over. Not yet. At 10 p.m., I received an email from a distant cousin. We had no idea. Please forgive the family's deception. We can help you now. I smiled faintly. The first cracks in the family armor appeared. They were panicking, and I wasn't done. I sat by the window late into the night. Thoughts raced. I realized a truth I hadn't admitted before. For 42 years, they underestimated me. For decades, they silenced me. And now they are afraid of me. The feeling was intoxicating. Not vengeance, not anger, but power. The final message of the day came just before midnight. Another unknown number. Mrs. May, one more move, and everyone loses everything. Consider carefully. I read it, smiled. Move carefully? No. I moved decisively. I put the phone down, closed my eyes. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was leading. The day began like any other, but nothing in my life had been ordinary for years. The phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. A text. Unknown number. If you value your granddaughter, stop what you're doing. I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it. I didn't flinch. I didn't answer, because fear had no place here. By 8:15 a.m., the doorbell rang. Not gently, not politely, shaking, pounding. My son and daughter-in-law arrived, together this time. They stepped inside without permission. I didn't stop them. They needed to see the consequences of underestimating me. My son's face was tight. Mom, he started. I held up a hand. No, today I don't explain. I expose. His eyes widened. His wife, clutching her handbag like armor, whispered, Please, Nana. I let her voice trail into silence. I walked to the living room window. The city outside seemed distant. I turned slowly. I've been quiet for 42 years, I said softly. They didn't respond. That silence cost me my home, my husband's truth, my granddaughter. I hadn't seen her yet. The thought of her 9 years old hidden from me made my hands shake, but not from fear. From rage. My son finally spoke. Mama, we can fix this. Privately. I laughed, a quiet, cold sound. Privately? You mean as you always did, to hide the truth and protect lies? He swallowed. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupted. I understand that everyone in this house. I paused. Isla had joined silently, standing behind me. We, I continued, have been controlled by fear. For too long. Then the first wave of public humiliation arrived. My daughter-in-law's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her hands trembled. It was a news alert. Court recognizes grandmother's rights. Nana May claims guardianship of the child and property after DNA confirmation. She dropped her phone. The sound echoed in the room. A gasp escaped my son's mouth. They had assumed I would crumble. They were wrong. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because I knew the real confrontation hadn't begun. I pulled out the USB drive. Every recording. Every file. every piece of evidence that showed the truth of my husband's manipulation. I played one audio file. My husband's calm, controlled voice filled the room. She must never know about the child. Keep her unstable. Limit her access. Protect the family at all costs. I watched my son. His hands shook. His eyes widened. He tried to speak. I stopped him with a look. Do you understand now? I asked softly. They nodded. Not out of agreement. Out of fear. I continued. For years, you justified deception as protection. You told yourselves it was for my own good. But this, I said, holding the drive high, is not protection. It is control. And control ends today. The second wave of psychological suspense arrived. I turned to Isla. Bring her in. She hesitated. I didn't wait. Through the door came a small, timid voice. 9 years old. My granddaughter. She stopped at the threshold. Wide-eyed. Confused. I knelt down. Hello, I whispered. She stepped closer slowly. Her eyes searched mine. Recognition wasn't immediate, but curiosity was. I held out my hand. She took it. And in that moment, I realized everything that had been kept from me would never separate us again. My son finally spoke. She's you, he said weakly. Yes, I replied. And this, I said, gesturing to the files, the court recognition, the recordings, is the truth you tried to hide. My daughter-in-law's face paled. She whispered, Nana, please. I shook my head. No. Today, silence is gone. Secrets are gone. Lies are gone. The final public humiliation of the morning arrived when my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Stop now, or the child will be taken from you permanently. I read it aloud. The child will be taken from me? I asked. My son's mouth went dry. My daughter-in-law's hands trembled. They had thought threats would stop me. They were wrong. I turned toward the small figure of my granddaughter. She looked at me, confused. I'm your grandmother, I said gently. Her small lips trembled. I knelt. This is your home too. And I will protect you. Always. Isla whispered, they're scared. I nodded. They should be. The rest of the day was a series of confrontations. Phone calls, messages, emails, relatives pleading, friends advising, the family trying to negotiate. But I no longer explained. I no longer negotiated. I acted. Every step measured. Every word deliberate. By nightfall, the household had shifted. My son and daughter-in-law were subdued. Isla had started organizing documents. And I sat quietly, my granddaughter asleep beside me, finally safe. For the first time in 9 years. Before sleep, I received one final message. Unknown number. This is not over. You will regret this. I smiled faintly. Regret, I whispered, is theirs, not mine. The day began like any other, but nothing in my life at Beta Morning began with the scent of rain and dust, heavy against the windows. I sat at my desk, laptop open, files sprawled around me. Isla hovered nearby, quiet. We were waiting, not for news, not for mercy, but for truth. The lawyer called at 8:02 a.m. Mrs. May, he said, voice tight. We may have located the real will. I leaned forward, pulse quickening. Show me, I said softly. He hesitated. It's complicated. Someone very close may have hidden it. I froze. My heart sank. Someone close. I had expected betrayal from strangers, not my own family. By 9 a.m., we were at the law firm. The files lay on the table like landmines. Isla and I sat opposite the senior attorney. He opened a folder. Mrs. May, this is the original will of your husband. Signed, notarized, and dated 6 months before his death. I felt my stomach twist. 6 months before, half a year before he had passed, he had drawn up a document that changed everything. I opened the folder. My eyes scanned the pages and stopped. There it was, all property, guardianship, and financial authority granted to my wife, Mrs. Nana May. No exceptions, no overrides. I stared. Then my eyes found the signatures. Notary, witness, and then a signature I recognized. My son. I gasped. He had forged his father's approval. Every limitation, every exclusion, every hidden act of control, he had accelerated it himself. Isla's hand gripped mine. They did this, she whispered. I nodded. They. All of them. By 10 a.m., we arrived at the house. I knew confrontation was inevitable. My son and daughter-in-law were waiting, faces tight, nervous, and pale. I didn't approach them. I let them come to me. Mom, my son began, voice shaking. I held up the will. Explain this, I said quietly. He swallowed. I thought it was easier for everyone. Easier. I asked slowly. Easier to erase me from my own granddaughter's life? He flinched. His wife whispered quickly. It was supposed to protect her. I shook my head. Protect? Or manipulate? I asked. The room went silent. Then came the first public confrontation. The lawyer had arranged a meeting. Neighbors, distant relatives, even a few journalists were present, invited by those curious whispers of truth. The air was thick. Eyes on me. The files on the table. The granddaughter playing quietly in the corner. The lawyer started the meeting. Mrs. May, he said carefully, evidence shows the original will was hidden. The signed copies in possession of your son are forged. The court recognizes this as fraud. Gasps. Murmurs. My son's face went pale. Fraud, he whispered. I didn't answer, because the silence was louder than any scream. I held up the will. This, I said softly, is my husband's last declaration. And it proves what I have always known. Everything he did to protect, manipulate, or hide was orchestrated without me. But the betrayal doesn't stop there. I looked at my son. You, I said. He froze. You forged your father's approval. You hid the truth. And for what? To feel control over a life that wasn't yours. The room was tense. Even my daughter-in-law couldn't respond. Her lips pressed tight, eyes downcast. Isla whispered, They thought they could contain you. I smiled faintly. They underestimated me again. I turned to the extended family. Everyone here, I said softly, saw me as weak. Silent, compliant, invisible. And yet, every lie, every act of deceit, you were all complicit. Whispers rippled through the room. They hadn't expected confrontation. Not this direct. Not this public. The first humiliation peak came when my son tried to interrupt. Mama, it's not fair. Silence, I said firmly. His words died mid-sentence. The power had shifted. For the first time, he felt the weight of my authority. I handed the lawyer the audio recordings. Every instance of manipulation. Every hidden decision. Every act intended to erase me. He nodded. These will be submitted to court immediately, he said. Murmurs of shock echoed through the room. Even my daughter-in-law's face turned pale. I knelt to my granddaughter. Do you understand what's happening? I asked softly. She nodded, small and unsure. I held her hand. This is your home, I whispered. This is your family, and I will protect you. A text buzzed. Unknown number. Stop now, or you'll lose everything. I read it aloud. The child, or their fear of me? I asked softly. Silence followed. Isla whispered, They're serious. I shook my head. No, they are afraid. By evening, emails poured in. Nana may reconsider. You are destroying the family. This will have consequences. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Action had replaced explanation, and power was now visible to everyone. That night, my son tried one last time. Alone. I only wanted what's best, he said softly. I stared at him. You wanted control. You wanted secrecy. You wanted to be the one deciding who had access to my granddaughter's life. That is not best. That is betrayal. He lowered his head. For the first time, silent. I reviewed the recordings once more. The manipulation, the lies, the hidden wills, everything lined up. I realized a terrifying truth. The betrayal wasn't just about control. It was about testing me, about seeing if silence could erase me. It couldn't. Not now. Before sleep, a final message arrived. Unknown number. You've uncovered more than you realize. Next time, it won't be just words. I read it, then smiled faintly. Next time, I whispered, it will be exposure, truth, and justice. The morning light felt heavier than usual. It pressed against my window, sharp and revealing, like the truth I had been chasing for decades. Isla and I sat silently at the kitchen table. The laptop hummed between us, open on a social media dashboard I had never touched before. I took a deep breath. Today, I whispered, the world will know what they hid from me. From us. Isla nodded, eyes wide. Are you sure about this? She asked. I didn't answer. Not with words. I just clicked publish. The first post went live. A video compilation of court filings. Audio recordings of my husband's manipulation. The hidden will proving my rights. Subtle captions highlighting every betrayal. All in under 3 minutes. Within seconds, my phone buzzed. Notifications flooded in. Likes, shares, comments. I can't believe she's been kept away all this time. This is insane. How could anyone do this to their own family? Finally, she's reclaiming her power. Isla stared at me. They're going viral, she whispered. I smiled faintly. They underestimated me, I said softly. Again, the first family reaction came immediately. A phone call from my son. Mama, stop this, please. I ignored it. Instead, I watched the notifications climb. Shares, comments, millions of eyes now aware of the betrayal. By mid-morning, the first public humiliation hit. Relatives, friends, neighbors, they had all assumed my silence meant compliance. Now everyone saw the truth. My son's phone buzzed constantly. Messages from friends, family, lawyers. Are you insane? This is going to ruin everything. Stop her. He looked at me white-faced. Mama, this is too much, he whispered. I let the silence speak. By noon, reporters arrived at the house. They wanted interviews, photos, reactions. I didn't shy away. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I gave one statement, calm and deliberate. I have been silent for 42 years. Today I speak. Today I reclaim what is mine. That is all. The microphones recorded every word. The cameras captured every movement. Even my granddaughter, 9 years old, watched quietly from the corner. The first micro cliffhanger arrived when my daughter-in-law received a text. Your secrets are now public. Everyone knows. Her face drained of color. Her hand shook. She looked at me. Mama, please stop. I shook my head. Silence served you. Exposure will serve truth. By 2 p.m., the second wave hit. Family group chats exploded. Mom, what are you doing? This is destroying the family. You're insane. Think about the child. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded additional evidence to my lawyer. Bank records showing hidden transfers. Hospital forms proving my exclusion. My husband's audio instructions to control and erase me. Action replaced words. Power replaced fear. By 4 p.m., the first public confrontation escalated. Neighbors came by. Journalists called. Even a few distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in decades showed up at the door. I didn't leave. I didn't hide. I stood at the threshold, confident. Isla beside me, my granddaughter holding my hand. My son tried to intervene. Mama, you're destroying everything. I looked at him calm. Everything? No. You've been destroying everything, silently, carefully, for years. I'm only showing the world now. He flinched. The weight of exposure pressed on him. The first psychological shift had happened. By evening, social media exposure had reached millions. News articles cited court filings. Viral clips from the courtroom hearings were shared widely. Grandmother claims guardianship after decades of exclusion. Hidden will reveals family betrayal. Audio recordings show manipulation and control. Even my son's friends commented, "You did this to her? Wow. How could you hide your own mother?" The humiliation was public and precise. I turned to my granddaughter. "Do you understand what happened?" I asked softly. She nodded. "They hid you from me," I whispered. She hugged me, and I felt a quiet victory. At 9 p.m., the first threatening escalation arrived. Another unknown number. "Stop now, or the child will be taken from you permanently." I read it aloud. "Taken from me?" I asked calm. Isla whispered, "They're serious." I shook my head. Fear has power only if you believe it. I do not. By nightfall, the family's panic was tangible. Calls, texts, emails, even neighbors whispered as they passed. I can't believe she's doing this. The world knows now. Her silence ended years ago. I sat quietly, feeling the first true reversal of power. They had underestimated me for decades. Now I was untouchable. Before sleep, I reviewed the day's activity. The viral numbers, shares, comments, even private messages from relatives and friends who had previously ignored me. Everyone was watching. Everyone knew the truth. And yet a question lingered. Who was sending the threats? How far would they go to stop me? And what new betrayal would be revealed next? The answers weren't clear. But one thing was, I was ready. That night, I whispered to myself. For 42 years, silence was their weapon. Today, exposure is mine. I closed my laptop. Isla switched off the lights. My granddaughter slept peacefully. The storm outside mirrored the storm I had unleashed, but this storm was mine. And I controlled it. The morning air was heavy with tension. Rain had fallen overnight, leaving the streets slick and reflective, mirroring the turmoil inside me. Today was the day, not just to reclaim what was mine, not just to expose every lie, every betrayal, but to finally reveal the ultimate secret hidden in plain sight. Isla and I arrived at the courthouse before 9 a.m. The crowd outside was larger than before. Reporters, neighbors, relatives, even strangers drawn by the viral story, pressed close. Phones recording, cameras flashing. I didn't flinch. This storm was mine. Inside, the courtroom was tense. My son and daughter-in-law sat at the defense table, faces pale. They had no allies left, no shields, no excuses. I walked in calmly, granddaughter by my side, every step deliberate, every eye on me, every whisper silenced by the weight of my presence. The judge called the hearing to order. The lawyer, senior and poised, turned to me. "Mrs. May," he said softly, "this is the final session. The evidence has been compiled. But there is one more revelation, one that changes everything." My pulse quickened. "Go on," I said softly. The lawyer began. "During review of the financial and property documents, we discovered a hidden trust, unreported by the deceased husband. Its details suggest that someone deliberately diverted funds, manipulated assets, and even attempted to override the original will." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Whispers rose. My son's face went white. My daughter-in-law's hands shook. Then came the first public humiliation. The lawyer handed over printed copies of email chains, bank messages, and digital files. "Your son," the lawyer said, voice steady, "was aware of this trust. He attempted to conceal it from the family, from the courts, and from Mrs. May. This is the ultimate act of betrayal." Murmurs rippled. My son opened his mouth. I stopped him with a look. Silence carried weight. He froze. I walked to the front of the courtroom. Holding the files, I addressed everyone. For 42 years, I stayed silent. For decades, I explained myself. Today, I act. And today, the truth is finally public. The child, the property, the control, all manipulated by those who should have protected me. And yet, the ultimate betrayal lay hidden in plain sight. The room was still. Even the gallery held its breath. Then came the climactic courtroom moment. The lawyer played audio recordings from my husband, detailing instructions to control and manipulate the family hierarchy. Ensure Nana May has limited access. Control her exposure. Keep her uninformed. Override her authority whenever possible. I felt the room tilt. Whispers, shocked gasps, and murmurs filled the air. My son's shoulders slumped. My daughter-in-law's lips pressed tight. The lawyer turned, addressing everyone. "It is clear now that Mrs. May was systematically excluded. Yet in the midst of this, she uncovered the hidden will, the audio recordings, and the financial manipulations. She acted decisively. And today, she exposes the person most responsible for attempting to erase her, her own son." My son's eyes widened. The gallery gasped. I didn't flinch. I knelt briefly to my granddaughter. "Do you understand?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. "This is your home. This is your family. And no one can take that from you." Isla squeezed my shoulder. "They don't know what's coming next," she whispered. I nodded. Yes, they have no idea. By mid-morning, the social media storm had escalated further. Viral clips from the courtroom flooded every platform. Grandmother exposes hidden trust and family betrayal. Audio recordings prove decades of manipulation. Son caught hiding assets and forging will approvals. The family's panic was visible even to the public. "Mom, please stop," my son texted repeatedly. I didn't respond. Power now replaced words. The first micro cliffhanger of the hearing arrived when the lawyer revealed a series of emails from my son to his wife. "Ensure she does not find out about the trust. Keep all documentation hidden. This must remain secret." The courtroom erupted. Even strangers in the gallery gasped audibly. The betrayal was undeniable. By afternoon, the first legal victory came. The judge recognized my rights. Full guardianship of my granddaughter. Access to all property and financial assets as stipulated in the hidden will. Immediate legal oversight to prevent further concealment by family members. My son tried to speak. I cut him off with a calm, firm voice. No words, only action now. The second public humiliation followed outside the courtroom. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashing, microphones held high. "Mrs. May, your son concealed the hidden will and attempted financial fraud. How do you feel?" I held my granddaughter's hand. "I feel relief. I feel vindicated. And I feel that the truth, finally, will protect my family." The cameras captured every moment. Even the family's whispers were recorded, echoing their defeat. By evening, unknown numbers began texting threats again. "Stop now or face consequences you can't imagine." I read them aloud. "Consequences? Fear has power only if you accept it." "I do not." Isla whispered. "They're serious this time." I shook my head. "They are desperate. Desperation has no power over truth." Before midnight, the lawyer sent a final note. "The hidden trust contains additional documents we have yet to fully review. Another secret may emerge." I smiled faintly. "Another secret," I whispered, "and it will not hide for long." That night, as I lay beside my granddaughter, I realized something profound. 42 years of silence had taught me patience. Decades of exclusion had taught me vigilance. And betrayal had taught me power. I would not be ignored again. I would not be silenced. And the ultimate truth? It was still unfolding.